Firstly, in education reforms outlined earlier today, secondary school pupils in England would be able to study technical subjects like manufacturing and AI in addition to the core academic subjects. It's part of an effort by the new government of the new administration to tackle youth unemployment. Anna Mikhailova is Times Radio's political editor. Hello to you, Anna.
Hi, John.
Hi. So last week, Anna, we heard about limited help with immediate problems handling the cost of living. And now we're talking about long-term solutions for huge challenges. You know, the million and more who are not in education or employment or training, the so-called NEETs. And Burnham, Anna, is drawing on his localist instincts and his experience as Manchester mayor here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think, the background to all of this is we had the Alan Milburn initial review published, and we are waiting for his second review, which actually has the solutions. And what Team Burnham have done is essentially go early on that and show that they are making this a priority and fixing this a priority. And Alan Milburn has so far welcomed the announcement and the change of focus. But as you alluded to, the thing that's so far missing is the bit of the puzzle which encourages businesses more to provide opportunities for young people. But I think, the Prime Minister would say that he's still going to see that second part of the Milburn review, and we will still see those wider recommendations.
OK, so obviously more to hear, more to do, more to see. It is a decisive step, though, away from the university targets of the Blair years and a big step beyond Keir Starmer's goal of a higher ratio of apprenticeships to degree students.
Yes, definitely. And I think, we have seen that shift in terms of the approach. I think Andy Burnham, he does like to paint this as a completely new thing. There's already been a social media clip of him with a hard hat and a degree hat. And this concept that he's rejecting the Blair approach to university, it's well packaged, but it's obviously not new. There's been a trend towards this and away from that policy for a while. It's just symbolic within Labour ranks, what he's doing. I think, again, there's a lot of, within the Milburn Review, there is a lot about how young people themselves say that school is just not preparing them properly for the workplace.
Yes.
They're not necessarily talking about the steps that the government has announced, but there is certainly a frustration that, for example, there is not enough preparation on how to apply for jobs, how to start jobs, and all of those things that are proving extremely challenging in this day and age of a lot of competition for a dwindling number of entry-level jobs. So, I think the measures are welcome, but again, I think without proper incentives to businesses, without cutting red tape to make it easier to employ young people, then this is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, look, rating the hard hat as being as equal to the university gown, Anna, has been a policy goal for many years. I've been hearing the argument in politics that we should be more like Germany, say, and abandon the snobbery against technical jobs and skills for as long as I can remember. There is a visible plan here based on Burnham's Manchester Baccalaureate. Just tell us more.
Yes, well, so the focus on trying to get schools to be involved in local businesses and trying to plug gaps in terms of training and in terms of the kind of actual jobs that are needed locally, that is very much a newish approach. It chimes more with what has been done and trialled in Manchester, and it also speaks to a lot of Andy Burnham's focus. If you remember, he has spoken a lot recently about wanting to move away from places where people grow up, and to seek opportunity they need to move elsewhere. So by getting schools to connect more a bit with the kind of skill shortages that there are in the local area, then that's quite smart policy.
All right. Just briefly, Anna, there's been some new interesting opinion polling.
Absolutely. So we've had a second poll today in the space of just 2 days, which has shown Labour come out on top and beating Reform after a streak of over a year, with Reform coming first in pretty much every single national poll. So Survation have the latest poll. And listen, I mean, all I can say is it is being very, very well received within Labour and within Number 10. And they're using it as proof of a Burnham bounce. They're looking at the fact that there seems to be a dampening in terms of reform's success, but also the anecdotal evidence from these two first polls that Burnham and Labour is managing to get votes from the Greens. So they are hoping that he is going to be able to neutralise that threat from Greens, which had been seeping a lot of Labour support.
All right, Anna Mikhailova, good to talk to you. Thank you. That's Anna Mikhailova, our political editor at Times Radio. Now, welcome to the programme, Josh Dean, who's the Labour MP for Hertford and Stortford. Hello to you, Josh.
Afternoon. Thanks very much for having me on.
It's good to have you here. What are your thoughts on Andy Burnham's plan?
Well, I really welcome the Prime Minister's announcement today. I think it's a real step in the right direction. And it recognises that not only have young people been too often failed by the system, but that every pathway a young person takes should lead to a high quality outcome. So I really welcome the announcement today, but I do think there is more to do. And I think part of that is around making sure those young people disengaged from the school system are supported into work and other opportunities as well.
Yeah, OK, well, that is a point worth making. Josh, you are an MP at the tender age of 25. Are you 25 or 24 now?
26 now.
You're 26, OK, a bit older than I imagined, still pretty young. You left school at 17, didn't you? And you said you left school directionless. That's your word. Now, tell me, if you'd been asked to choose a path and a possible destination for your career and life at the age of 14, Josh, what would you have said?
Well, you're absolutely right. I left school at about 16 or 17 and I did feel directionless. And I think part of that was because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or what direction I wanted to go in. And I think for young people, having that exposure to different pathways early on can make a real difference, give you an idea of where you want to go, what path you want to follow. But for me, as a young person who dropped out of school, I wouldn't have found the path that was right for me without the role of youth workers and trusted adults, for example. And that's that wider part of the picture, I think, because I was supported by a fantastic youth worker called Russell in my community. He built my confidence, he helped me to find that path, but crucially bridged me into the support that I needed to overcome the barriers to work. So I think that earlier exposure to different pathways would have made a difference, but I also think there's that wider picture for young people as well.
Yeah, I just wondered, out of genuine curiosity, what path you might have chosen at the age of 14. I mean, a lot of 14-year-olds, Josh, at 14, they dream of scoring the winner in a World Cup final, or they dream of being rich and surrounded by beautiful admirers and popping up on social media looking thoroughly enviable, maybe not necessarily rewiring someone's flat. I'm sure you take my point.
I do, and when I was sort of 13, 14, I think I wanted to be a singer before I discovered that I didn't have a very good singing voice. But I think having that exposure early on to lots of different pathways is really important, because we ask young people to make a lot of decisions about their education, their life early on. You're going to be able to make a more informed decision, I think, as a young person, if you have that exposure to different pathways and if you can get that sort of experience and exposure to see how it can provide a fulfilling and long-term career.
I mean, how do you get firms in a local area to commit to taking the trainees and the apprentices and the recruits? I mean, new staff are expensive and not too many companies want to do too many openings.
I think we've announced the youth guarantee and the support for employers to take on apprentices and those young people that have been out of education, work and training for long periods of time. I think that's an important part of what this Labour government has done and can do some of that work.
It's going to take more than that, Josh, isn't it?
And I think it's important also to learn about the best practice. I think, for example, about Stansted Airport College and Stansted Airport, which is near my constituency, a really good example of what business and government can do working in partnership. And I think this does have to be about that partnership with business, supporting them to do this rather than just an expectation. And so that partnership, that support is a really important element.
Okay, I mentioned earlier AI, which is eating opportunities, job opportunities, faster than it creates job opportunities. I'm seeing reports, you will have too, of AI industry speakers being honoured at graduation ceremonies, being jeered and booed by the graduates. Gen Z does not have the same view as a lot of older people. What does that mean for this scheme, do you think? Unless you consider that, a job in construction, bricklaying, roofing and so on, it's not going to be overtaken in a hurry by AI.
I think, artificial intelligence is one of those fast developing industries and areas, and it's moving very quickly indeed. I think young people feel strongly when they see artificial intelligence used, for example, to steal or recreate from art or to replace those entry-level jobs that young people want to go into. But I also think it's important that young people get that exposure and that opportunity to learn not just how to work in those industries, but to shape those industries, because that, I think, is how we ensure that young people have those entry-level opportunities, and also ensure that artificial intelligence doesn't shape work. Work can shape artificial intelligence.
Yeah, well, I guess that would be the hope. There's an awful lot of young people who've got plenty of experience of having their way blocked by artificial intelligence. And however, that's got to be a big part of the formula. And you don't always get the sense that our policymakers are fully grasping that challenge. This whole scheme, though, Josh, I mean, it's just plain the obvious, isn't it? It's not a short-term scheme. It's going to take years to bear whatever fruit it does bear.
And I think we do have to look towards the future because, as the Prime Minister said, young people have been let down by this system for too long. And we need to not just think about those young people not in employment, education or training right now. We also need to think about how we keep the next generation in employment, education and training as well. And fixing that system, I think, is really important. It's a really important ambition, and it's what we're in government, I think, for, to deliver that change and make sure that we are rebuilding the system so that it's fair and more accessible.
OK, Labour MP Josh Dean. Good to talk to you, Josh. Thank you.